Hi everybody, it's Ryan at Verthine Guitar Works here in the scenic end of my basement. One of the things that happens when you're a guy who works on a lot of different guitars and who has friends who like to bring him things is you amass lots of parts from cheap guitars. Samix J Tersers, you name it. And the thing is a lot of the parts on those guitars are not necessarily bad quality. The woods are usually pretty good. The frets can be so-so. The tuners usually suck. Anyway, in looking for some more things to do in my shop to give me a little more time working on things and then gaining some experience, I decided to go ahead and look through my parts stash and build a parts caster out of just parts that I have on hand. Now, before I started making this video, I did go through my parts and I have already selected the neck that's going to work. But I'm going to change the angle of the camera here a little bit so you're looking at the parts instead of my face. And I'll show you what I went through to decide which neck I was going to use. So this is what we've got going on here. I have no idea where this body came from. I don't know what brand it is. I don't know anything about it other than it is plywood. It's, super strat style. It is very light. It weighs almost nothing. And it's got a cool angled neck pickup pocket there. And it kind of looks like at one time it probably had a mini switch here and then a master volume and a master tone with a 5-way switch. I'm assuming that the switch here probably coil tapped the humbucker that would have originally been here. Again, I don't know anything about this guitar. It's got, you can see, pretty good gouge here. But all in all, it looks to be in pretty decent shape. And hey, why not? I got parts laying around. Why not build something fun just to see what happens? So the next thing that I did was I had to decide. I have lots of necks. Here's a J Terser neck. Here's an S101 neck, which is a Samick neck, I believe, if I remember right. This is actually a Vicker neck. Clay Vicker was a guitar builder who I did not know, but one of my buddies was friends with him, and I ended up with one of the necks that he made. So I was just going through all my parts here just to see what would fit. Now, one thing that you might know if you've ever worked on guitars before is that there are two main neck pocket shapes. One of which is the rounded type, which they call a Stratocaster neck pocket. And then there is the square type, which is generally referred to as the Telecaster neck pocket. The widths are generally roughly the same. They vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, but those are the two main shapes that you get down here. So the first thing that I did was pull out all my necks that had this square shape. I actually have one other one, but it's up there. I'm just going to use these three for the example. So I just started out with, seeing what fit. I threw the Vicker neck on at first because I actually really liked this sort of color-changing metallic paint with this metallic red body, but the neck pocket is way loose, and it just isn't going to work. And honestly, because of who built this neck and its history, I kind of don't want to use it on a junk build. We shall see. It badly needs a refret, and anyways, not going to use this one. So then I moved on to the next one. I thought, well, this Samick neck is actually pretty nice. The wood on it is really nice. It has some beautiful figuring. And the frets are actually in good shape. I could probably dress these, you know, file them flat, recrown them, and they would be great. You know, I could probably find some better tuners in my stash and cut a new nut for it and be good to go. So I threw this on the body and I thought it looked pretty good. But one very important thing to note is that depending on how many frets your neck has, the length from the nut to the end of the neck pocket could be slightly different, just depending on if it's 21 frets, 22 frets, 24 frets, and some of the 22 frets actually have, you know, a shorter neck here with a little bit of overhang over the last fret. So actually, when it's in the body, it stops more like here rather than at the very end. Anyway, that's a little more complicated than we probably have to go. So I put this on here. The important thing to note for a Stratocaster style is that the scale length, which is the length from the nut to the actual saddle, is roughly 25.5 inches. Now, it's going to vary from string to string, it's going to vary from guitar to guitar, but the generally accepted knowledge is it's 25.5 inches. So I grabbed a bridge that I have sitting around in my parts bin and sat it down, and I got out my trusty Home Depot cheapo, and I can see when I put this in place that it is actually 25.25 inches to the ends of these saddles, which you would think that another 1/4 inch to get you to half, well, maybe you'd have that much movement in the saddles to get you where you need to go. The answer to that is no. That won't work. I don't have enough movement in these saddles to bring them back far enough for that to work. So, neck number 2 off the table, so to speak. So next one I have is a J Tercer neck, which I've already started taking apart, and that's why things are falling off of it. Let me grab my cup here. And technically this does not have the right shape in the pocket, however I do not care. So the other thing is when I got this in here, I immediately noticed that the neck pocket is fairly tight, but you can push it all the way down. And while I am left with a little bit of weirdness at the gap because this is a Strat style neck and a Tele style pocket, I do end up with exactly 25.5 inches to where my saddles naturally are on my bridge. So I'm going to use this neck. And I think it's going to look fine, and just judging based on how much room I have between the body and the top of the frets over here, I believe that my height for my strings will be plenty good. So that gives us our basic guitar. Now this neck is in pretty good shape. Ooh, that was me squeezing my finger in between a neck and a body. This neck has one of the ugliest headstocks I've ever seen. The wood on the neck is actually pretty cool figure, and it's really pretty straight grain. So I believe the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the crappy plastic nut, I'm going to pull off the tuners, and I'm going to draw a better shape on here and cut it out on the bandsaw, and we'll get to working on this neck. So we're going to go ahead. I've already got all of the gosh darn it, my brain just completely lost what those are called. The ferrules. There you go. I've got all of those off already in this cup here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the proper screwdriver and get these tuners the rest of the way off. So there we go. Got a clean slate here. All this is going to end up getting sanded off, but I really want to come up with a better shape for this headstock, because this is terribly ugly and it does not go well with the body shape. So let me grab a Sharpie. We're going to draw it on the front here and see what it looks like. If we don't like it, I'll grab some alcohol and I can take it off. I'm thinking something like that. Just a little bit pointier. Get rid of this ugly lobe over here. Maybe do a little more of a scallop here. Great thing is when you're working with cheap parts, you do whatever the heck you want, and if you guys cringe, I don't care. So we'll get this over to the bandsaw and we'll get it cut out.
It's late, past my bedtime. I'm just praying I don't sleep at all, but I probably should. I wish that I could. 5 a.m. now. I wish I could smash my alarm clock. It wants me to die. Time to wake up and dust myself off. Go to work and I'll give life a try.
Alright, so we've got a shape. It works. It's a little bit better than what was there. And I did want to say, because I feel like somebody's going to ask about this, I'm not going to put a brand on it. I'm not trying to make anybody think that this isn't a J. Terser neck. It was just ugly, and I just didn't like the shape. So I'm going to take that off, and I am going to put some different finish on there. But I just couldn't stand the shape the way that it was. So Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out this nut, which should be pretty easy. And then I'm going to use this heat gun and heat this up and see if we can't get it to bubble up and scrape it off. 99.9% chance that this is polyurethane and or even polyester finish. It's cheap and it's plasticky and it needs to come off. So I am going to keep this nut because when I make the new one I can use this as a template for the string spacing. You can always eyeball that later, but if you have the original, it's a nice guide. So, here's where the fun begins. We walk behind the camera here, which I'm sure you're not supposed to do, but you know. Get my knife out. Let's heat this up and see what happens.
It's tired, but not the same.
Now I'm going to go back to the belt sander and sand this a bit and probably sand down the entire neck to some degree and do some tung oil or something like that on it. We'll see. I still also have to finish this little transition here where I've changed the shape just a little bit. And I'm not going to show you me sanding this because you've seen me on the belt sander already, so I'll bring you back when we're ready for the next step. So, I've got the headstock shaped. I've got the whole neck sanded. You can see here's my final shape. Sorry, I'm still getting used to staring at things in the camera. I hit it with a torch and did some light sanding on it just to see what it would look like. It's kind of fun. We'll see what it looks like when I actually get some true oil on it. I may sand it a little bit before then too. It's a little blotchier than I'd like it to be, but it's neat. But you can see I've got the transition on the back of the neck all done, and all of the holes for the original tuners on the back of the headstock I've got filled in. I actually, while I was sanding, they filled up with dust, you know. So I took a little bit of super glue with this nice little whip tip thing, and this is the 10 thin from StewMac. and just hit each one of those with a dot and sanded it down. So it's completely flush now. You'll probably be able to see them depending on what kind of tuners I end up putting on this. But other than that, it's pretty much ready. I am going to go ahead next and check the fretwork on these. The frets on this neck have almost no wear marks on them. So I'm just going to do your standard sort of level and crown, and just make sure that they are all flat and happy, and then we can move on to throwing a little bit of tung oil on this, and then we can move on to the body. So I'm going to go ahead and do that fretwork. Hi everybody, we're back in the shop. It's a new day. I've been fiddling around looking for some parts, trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to use to put this little beast together. So I'm going to take you through some of the thought processes that I had to go through this morning to figure out what it is I'm going to put in this thing. So let's get started. So what you see in front of you here are the majority of the parts that I am going to use to put into this. Now again, I just want to stress that this is, just a parts caster. I'm just putting something together with things I've got laying around the shop. It's not necessarily going to be nice, but the goal is when we're done that it will play well and it'll be a cheap guitar that somebody can buy and do whatever they want with. So I'll take you through some of my thought processes this morning. So the next thing that I wanted to do, since I've done the majority of the work to the neck, is I wanted to work on what was actually going to go into the body. So I needed to look for pickups, I needed to look for electronics. I already have a bridge sitting here that I'm going to use, which the block is loose on, so I'm going to have to tighten that up a little bit, but it's otherwise in good condition, so I think it'll serve its purpose for this just fine. So what I was originally going to do is I was going to use the original 2 singles and 1 humbucker, master volume, master tone, and a 5-way switch. However, I instantly found out that a standard single coil does not fit inside of this slot. Now, those of you who have worked on guitars before will immediately see what the issue is here. These slots do not have any sort of shape to them for the base plate shape of a standard Stratocaster base plate. So there's a few options that I could do, and what it boils down to is I'm not going to do them because this project is meant to be just a simple thrown together thing. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on it because at the very end of this is a guitar that's not really going to be worth a whole lot of money, so I don't want to put a whole bunch of time into it that I'm not going to see a return on. So that being said, I'm not going to put Stratocaster pickups in this. I had some laying around, but they're not going to fit, and I'm not interested in taking out my router and routing this out because it's going to mess up what paint is here and all of that. It's just not worth it. So those go back in the bin. Now, this humbucker area, I don't have a whole lot of humbuckers sitting around, but I do have a few. These 2 came out of an older student style Washburn guitar. They're not super high output, but in deciding to figure out which one I wanted to put in here, I wanted to figure out what their relative output to each other was probably going to be. So I've got my meter set up here, and I can already hear people screaming at me saying, well, all the people say that the resistance doesn't actually tell you what the output's going to be and blah blah blah. First of all, I disagree with that. Second of all, I'm not going to go into why. It doesn't matter. However, we've got these 2 pickups here, and we've got 10.17 on this guy. And 10.2 on this guy. So this guy is just the tiniest bit hotter when compared to the other one. We're going to go with that. We're not going to go into any more explanation on resistance values and pickup designs because it doesn't matter for this video. So this is what we're left off with. 10.2. Not super hot, but not terrible, honestly. And we'll couple that with a 500K potentiometer so we can get all the output out of it that we possibly can. And that is a very ugly humbucker. I happen to have laying around this really neat cover. So what I am going to do is I'm going to put it on here and solder it on. And we'll put it in here with a black surround, and I'm just going to leave these two slots empty because who needs those for metal, right? So that gives us our pickup. Next thing that I needed to figure out, well, originally I had stuff out here because I was going to deal with the switch. Obviously I'm not doing that now, so once again this can go back in the bin. The other thing I needed to deal with was seeing what kind of potentiometers I had laying around. And of course, because this is just the way life works, I ended up having lots of pots on hand that all have the same thread depth on them. There's several, different kinds. There's generally long style and short style, and it refers to how many threads there are here. And of course, the 500K pots that I have laying around do not go far enough through the body to catch any threads. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to grab my router and come in here and just thin this out a little bit so that that will fit in here and I can screw it on just fine. So that's all of the major stuff that I'm going to do here. I'm not so worried, I was saying I didn't want to do any routing up here. That had more to do with paint and aesthetics and all of that. This will be much easier. All I'm going to have to do is put a flush cut bit on my router and just clean this out a little bit and make it a little bit thinner so that this can go through and have threads showing at the top. So I'm going to do that. I did manage to go through my pile. I found some tension springs for the bridge and the screws that originally came out of one of these style bridge. I'm only going to use 4 of them. I don't know about these tuners still. I did find a trem bar, and I actually haven't even looked to see if this fits, but generally they all kind of fit. And that one fits just fine. So we've even got a trem bar. I've got a back plate here that came off of something. I don't know what. It's kind of ugly. However, the back of this guitar is kind of ugly, so I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to, that's the wrong way around, whether or not I want to put this on here. None of the screw holes line up with any of the 3 of these that I have sitting around, so I would have to drill new holes, and I'm honestly not sure whether or not I care that much. Generally speaking, on a personal level, I take these off of nearly every guitar I have that has a tremolo, because when you go to change strings, inevitably what happens is the string goes everywhere except through this hole that it's supposed to go through. Which is rather annoying when you're changing strings. So I'll probably just leave that off. Now this, I will probably make a cover for this. We'll have to see what I have laying around that will work for that, but I'm sure that I have something. I've got a bunch of neck plates, so I'm sure that I can find one in the box that will work for this bolt pattern. And we'll get moving on this. So that's the update for now. I'm going to do most of this work off camera. I'm not really trying to do a how-to video about how to put a parts caster together, but rather showing you just what's involved in the process of me sticking something together and showing you my progress along the way. So I'm going to do that, and I'll come back to you when I've got a little bit more done. So I thought I would give you guys a little bit of a look at where we are at now. Neck is on the guitar. I found a plate that fit, found some screws. I filled the old holes. It's been drying for several hours. I drilled new ones and got it straight. One important thing to check when you're going to stick a neck on a guitar, especially if it didn't originally come on that guitar, which this one didn't, is when you get it set in place and you've got it held there fairly well, you need to take a straight edge, or I actually used a piece of plastic twine. And what I did was I put it in the old nut and right on the saddle and checked to see that I didn't have too much room or not enough room between where the string was and the edge of the fretboard. And I did that on each side from the saddle to the nut just to make sure that the strings were going to be centered and that the neck didn't have to be turned either way at all. So thankfully this neck fits this neck pocket very tightly, and when I had it down in there, I actually threw a clamp on it and pulled it together. I checked it and it was absolutely going to work fine. So all I had to do was drill some new holes, and we've got a neck now. As you can also see inside the body, I've wired the single volume. I left a bunch of extra wiring in there. I'm just not going to cut this down and make it pretty. It kind of is what it is. This pickup is not, anything real great. I feel like someday if somebody ever gets this guitar and they want to do something else to it, they can pull that out. It's whatever. But I've got the strings in there. This is my ground wire going over here. I found myself a jack and got that wired up and got that in there. Found a cool knob that went well with the guitar, and got our humbucker in there with the cool little metal plate that I had. As far as what I've done to the neck at this point, you can see I did kind of burn in the headstock a little bit, sanded it down, and then hit it with some boiled linseed oil. And then I actually went over the back of the neck and that area with some True Oil, which is gunstock oil. It's really good stuff. I love using it to finish necks. In fact, I may finish some guitars in it in the future. We'll see. But anyway, I got the frets cleaned up. Thankfully, the frets on this neck had little to no wear on them. They were mostly just dirty. I have suspicions that they may actually be stainless steel. It would be kind of amazing for a J terser to have stainless steel, but for it to have been as old as I think that neck probably was, and the frets to have absolutely zero wear in them, makes me think it is at least possible that they are stainless steel. But I got them all cleaned up and polished up, got the neck oiled, and we're pretty much ready to move on to the next step. I'm going to figure out what tuners I'm going to put on it and get those mounted. I'm going to make a new nut for it. I might actually have a fake bone nut in a baggie somewhere that I might stick in here and use instead, just because the time investment in making a proper bone nut is really more than this guitar is worth. Sure, it would be great, but it would be just as great, I think, with a new plastic nut, and the proper action. So I may end up doing that. Anyway, we're moving right along with this build. Looks kind of funny without those pickups there, but I've decided to force myself not to care. I've been looking at this guitar all day long, thinking to myself, I really could just get my router and just fix the back of these so I could put single coils in there, but I don't want to do that. It's going to mess up the paint. It's not going to look good. I would have to end up repainting stuff, and then I'm into possibly repainting the body and all that. And this isn't going to be that kind of project. This is really just sort of a walkthrough for myself as well as others, just to show you, hey, you can throw some parts together and get a good playing guitar. I have checked this with my straight edge, and it looks like our action is going to be phenomenal. I've got plenty of space. In fact, the saddles are actually a little bit too high right now, so I'm going to be able to take them down, which is awesome. And I've got plenty of room to do that. So for some parts that I just had sitting on the shelf, it's shaping up to be a pretty cool little thing, and it'll be interesting to see what it sounds like when I've got it all together. So I will bring you guys back after I do a little bit more work to it, and we'll talk about what I've done, and should have this thing finished before too long. So rock on. Well, welcome back, everybody. So this is a couple more hours of work later, and I'll kind of take you through where I'm at and what I still need to do. Since I don't remember where I was last time I made this video, you guys are going to be seeing this as one video, but for me this is over a several day period. Bridges in place, pickup, volume, straight out to the jack. I put these two covers here because I had some on hand and it looks better than empty holes. As we discussed earlier in the video, those routes are not the right shape for regular Strat pickups, and I don't want to route out the body. So that's what it's getting. Got the neck cleaned up, got it oiled, and it's looking real good. I did end up putting the stock tuners back on. They just were going to be the best that I had on hand for the job. So, and I think they'll work out all right. I did manage to get a little lubrication down inside of them, so I think that's going to help. But, hi there, kitty. This is Lemmy. He's a semi-permanent visiting guest buddy. He's a good boy. Anyway, so where I'm at now is I've got a new nut in here, and it's obviously quite high on the action here, you can see. So I need to go ahead and get my files out and start filing these nut slots to get these strings down to the right level, and then we'll mess with everything down here, mess with the truss rod adjustment, and get all the action done, and this thing will be pretty much done. I gotta find a strap button for this end, and that is pretty much it. So we'll bring you back when we have a playing guitar. Well, there you go, guys. So, one parts caster built, playable. I made a little clear cover for the electrics area. As I stated earlier, I am going to leave the tremolo cavity open. It's cool. But got the neck finished with some True Oil and tuners back on. Found a string tree in my parts bin. So like I said, because these aren't routed correctly for regular Stratocaster pickups, I wasn't going to mess with it. So I took some covers that I had and just screwed them in place so that it looked less silly, I guess. It looks a little more complete. This is just a humbucker I had laying around. I put that cap on. It goes out to a 500K pot and just out the output jack, and yeah, the neck came out well. The action on it is really nice, and interesting development with this. Let me turn this camera a little bit so that you can see me. Hi! So interesting development with this. I was contacted by a friend of my wife's who was asking about getting her son a first guitar for Christmas this year. He's 12 years old, hasn't played before, and she was going to buy him an acoustic. And anybody out there who's a guitar guy knows that what ends up happening is boy asks for guitar, parents buy boy acoustic guitar, boy hates acoustic guitar. It never ends up playing. Funny enough, I recently watched an interview with Jerry Cantrell where he talked about how he wanted an electric guitar so bad, and his dad finally had bought him a guitar for Christmas one year, and it ended up being an acoustic, and he was super pissed off. He's like, man, I'm happy that I got the present. It's a guitar. It's technically what I asked for, but he was like really bummed it wasn't an acoustic, and his dad was basically like, listen, you little fart, you learn to play that acoustic and we'll talk about getting you an electric, so it's pretty funny, but it really is true. Oftentimes inexpensive beginner acoustic guitars just have horrendously bad action. They're really difficult to play. They often have buzzing. Cheap guitars like that, they need to go straight to a tech to have somebody do adjustments on the saddle, the nut, straighten out the neck, probably level the frets depending on what it is. Honestly, you're better off buying a little electric. Even the cheapies are just so much easier to play. And let's be honest, your 12-year-old boy or whatever, or girl or whoever in 2020 wants an electric guitar, probably. Unless they specifically say, oh man, I just love to play an acoustic. And then in which case, don't buy them crap, buy them something nice. But yeah, so anyway, I said, hey, I just got done building this guitar. It's nothing fancy, but I guarantee that it will play nicely. How about I just give you this guitar and you give it to him for Christmas? And she was excited about that. I sent her a picture of it, and it looks like that's going to happen. And I told her I would be happy to help her pick out a. Sorry, I'm switching arms because my arm's about to fall off. I told her I would be happy to help her pick out a little practice amp to go along with it. But yeah, I think that a kid's gonna be jazzed about this. It's kind of a weird little thing, but it turned out well. It plays really good. I jammed on it until like way too late last night, and I'm happy with how it came out. For a bunch of parts that I had laying on the shelf, it was sort of a little challenge to myself to see, hey, can I get all these things to fit together, and how well is it gonna play? And it turns out it's pretty awesome. So give you one last little look at it here. So anyway, thanks for following along. If you want to see more stuff like this, hit that subscribe button. Smash that subscribe button, and if you want to be notified, hit the little bell thingy. I gotta say all that. I watch YouTube too, right? So yeah, and let me know what else you'd like to see. My aim with this channel is not necessarily to do a how-to or show you all of what I'm gonna do. There's enough guys out there doing it already, and honestly, I don't have the time or the patience to edit that much video. I have kids, I have animals, I have a full-time job other than working on guitars in the evenings. So I really just don't have the time or the patience to sit around editing video. So I'm gonna try to make these as simple as possible, but I also want to make them interesting for you. So yeah, if you want to come along for the ride, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends if you thought it was cool, and we'll see you on the next one. Well, hello there. I couldn't let you go without giving you a little bit of a demo, so I'm just going to play some stuff and not talk.